Hey everybody, it's Comledax and welcome back to another premiere draft of Tarkir Dragonstorm. Without further ado, let's get into the pack one, pick one. We got a pretty sweet pack here with a few great options. Taking one of the strongest mono-colored spells, we could take Salt Road Pack Beast, which is great in the aggressive strategies. And the Herd Heirloom here for any splashy deck with a lot of big creatures. This can play pretty well, but I am a really big fan of Sonic Shrieker in terms of this card's power level. It's great top end in any of the Mardu aggro decks or Boros aggro decks, just splashing this in. And it's also strong enough to be super playable in those 5-color style strategies where you just take all the strongest multicolored spells. So very big fan of Sonic Shrieker, and I'm going to jam that here. Pick number 2, we have some pretty nice options again. Narset's okay, and we would have to commit to playing like a whole bunch of different colors to get both of these cards in the same deck. Not super into taking that here, but there's a Bone Cairn Butcher if we want to just take another Mardu multicolored spell, but I think the better path to take here, since this is a much weaker card than Sonic Shrieker, since this card gives you immediate value the second it hits the board, whereas this could die before it does anything, plus has to attack to really do a lot. I think the better picks here are the Mardu Monument or the Fortress Kinguard for much more consistent, cheaper cards, and I'm going to lean on the Mardu Monument here. This is because it fits into more archetypes, where this will be a great card again if we're Boros or Mardu aggro, while also being an excellent card if we go for that 5-color kind of build, picking up 3 different land types, whichever one we need. So both of these picks, obviously Mardu cards, but they can also fit into the splashy 5-color strategies. But seeing a pick 3 Mardu Devotee, we're happy to take that again towards Mardu. Shock Brigade is also pretty nice, but Mardu Devotee has been deceptively fantastic. Parination can be pretty nice if you have a lot of really big creatures, but it's still a bit finicky and quite slow, so I'd rather just grab Mardu Devotee here. And we now have a really, really nice path onto Mardu. Pick number 4, Kintree Nurture, I think is the best black, white, or red card in this pack. If we disregard color entirely, is anything stronger than it? I like Tawny back just about as much as Nurturer. Spectral Denial might be the strongest card here, disregarding color entirely, but not by like a ton. I think I'm fine to just take the Nurturer here, maybe speculate on a Jungle Hollow. There's a Frontline Rush pick 5. This card is excellent. You get to either get the wide board state by creating 2 creatures with this one spell, or benefit from having the wide board state by giving somebody +X where X is the number of creatures you control. So Frontline Rush is really nice for the Boros go wide, the Mardu go wide stuff. One thing I really do want to mention here is if you're trying to be quite aggressive, which you should be anytime you're in Mardu, you really do want to pick a specific 2-color pair and focus on that, splashing in the 3rd color. That way your 2 main colors you will have consistently on curve, so you won't be, waiting to play your 2-drop until like turn 4. Your aggro deck needs to curve out consistently, so starting with a white card, a red-white card, and a black card all at 3 or less mana is slightly awkward, because ideally we don't actually want to play all of these in the same deck by the end of the draft, because we don't want to have like a deck that is equal parts red, white, and black. We want 2 of these colors to be the main colors, and we only want cheap cards in the main 2 colors. Currently, we have cheap cards in all 3 colors, if that makes any sense. Pick 6, there's a War Effort now. Between a War Effort and a Frontline Rush, the red-white go wide build looks like the better spot to be if it is open. So ideally end up cutting Nurture, just playing the Shrieker splashed in at the top of the curve, Boros at the core would be ideally how this draft goes. But again, Mardu's one of the strongest archetypes in the set, so it is usually somewhat contested here. If it's contested enough that we don't get to specifically choose Boros and we have to go like Orzhov instead and be black-white at the core, we can do that too. Frontline Rush is still playable later in the game, and War Effort certainly is. So all 3 of our red cards are technically splashable so far, just certainly weaker off the splash than in the main colors. Pick 7 is just a really mediocre pack for everybody. I'd like to lean Boros here, so I'll take the mediocre white spell over the mediocre black one. Pick number 8, Iridescent Tiger's okay if you get a bunch of Flurry. but I've never been super impressed by it, so I think I'd rather take Bloodfell Caves. Rebellious Strike can also be fine in the right position. It is best in Boros with your mobilized tokens, your little 1/1s that hit the board attacking and then just die at the end of combat anyway. You will often be attacking in with these little chump attacking creatures, and it doesn't look suspicious that you're sending in a 1/1 that's just going to die anyway, because it's just going to die anyway even if they don't block. So you'll often get your opponent in positions where they'll block your 1/1 token with their 4/4 or something, and then you're like, all right, well, Rebellious Strike and eat your 4/4. So I do think the combat tricky stuff, particularly Rebellious Strike, does actually play pretty well with Mardu's mechanic of mobilizing. It's an easy Narset's Rebuke there. Pack's quite filler. We'll just cut off Boros. And that'll stay the case until pack number 2. Late Kintree Nurture. This is much higher quality than the last 3 or 4 picks that we've made, which does make us want to keep black in mind as probably more open than red, considering Wild Ride, the Double Summon Intimidator. These aren't really magic cards. These are cards we almost always want to just cut by the end of the draft. Pack 2, pick 1. Relatively easy Static Snare here. Very efficient removal. It's best when you are the aggressive player because you can control how many creatures are attacking and make sure that this gets its cost reduction. But it's instant speed, it exiles an artifact or creature, and it still gets the cost reduction if you cast this on blocks, if your opponent is casting with a few creatures, or is attacking with a few creatures. So it is playable even in defensive strategies. Just a really good removal spell, and I think pretty easily the pick here over like a decent card draw card of the Adept and like some little aggro dork of Bearer of Glory. Oh boy. Pack 2, pick 2, we have to choose between Quarry Steelcutter and a second Sonic Shrieker. What a beautiful pack for Mardu, a pack beast as well being great. I like the Steelcutter a lot for the go-wide versions of this deck. Try to flurry and get multiple tokens off of this towards the war effort, towards the frontline rush. But, again, we didn't see a lot of good red going late. We did see Nurturers going somewhat late, so getting another cheap red 2-drop could be awkward if red gets cut more, and we end up playing black and white as the main 2 colors. That's the biggest argument for Shrieker over Steelcutter. I'm probably supposed to go Shrieker over Steelcutter for that reason, but I can't resist. There's so many less opportunities to pick up a Quarry Steelcutter since it is a rarer card, literally. Pick 3, Underfoot Underdogs, puts 2 creatures on the board off of 1 spell. This is not good for every Mardu deck, but when you have multiple go-wide payoffs like both War Effort and Frontline Rush, if you get a bunch of cards like that that are buffing your entire board, the Underdogs does go up in quality. That said, we're not incredibly high on removal. We have Snare and Rebuke, and that's about it right now. So even a weak little 2 damage burn spell, while it's normally pretty bad in the set because there's a lot of beefy creatures, it would still be playable here when we're lower on removal, so that's not bad either. Also, the Dawnbreaker's fine. It's another 2-drop, and we want a lot of 2-drops to go with Flurry, but I'm going to go for Dragonfire. Kind of fills 2 roles here. We're a little low on removal, so this will be removal against small stuff. It's also a really cheap spell to help Flurry with. 1 mana to play this, so we can play this and a 2-drop on turn 3 to Flurry with that Steelcutter. Pick 4, more cheap removal. Stormplane Detainment, obviously more expensive than Channel Dragonfire, but this gets around that issue of actually being able to kill the gigantic dragons instead of just the little stuff. Pick number 5, Mardu is certainly contested. I mean, it's one of the only 2 archetypes that's very good in this set. Stormshriek Feral's fine at the top of the curve, and it gives you that flexible little flush out earlier. Sure. Rescue Leopard's fine. Fine filler. Narset's Rebuke, fine filler removal. Another Practitioner. As you can see, all of the good 2-drop aggressive creatures are really just getting absolutely soaked up here in this draft pod. Had we gone for another Shrieker over Quarry Steelcutter, I think it was the right instinct, as I was saying, to try to avoid playing red as the main color because it's just so contested here. Black, white at the core would have been a better spot to be. But hey, we still get a Jeskai Devotee here. We'll have a weaker deck going Boros at the core, but we'll get to play a Steelcutter, so have some fun with it. Very nice. Pick 8 Nomad Outpost. Practitioner's fine. So here's our deck right now. It's obviously not good, but it's not completely horrendous. Like, it's got a chunk of filler like Sunshield, Double Intimidator, and it needs more 2-drops pretty badly. But it has some very individually powerful cards like Steel Cutter, Sonic Shrieker, and a good chunk of removal to make up for that. And we're not through the draft yet. We have a third pack to start cutting all this filler and replacing it with better cards. So if pack 3 goes well for us, then the deck could become very strong. If pack 3 goes poorly and we only get like 3 or 4 playables, then this is going to be quite a mediocre deck, but we'll see. I mean, we open up a great 1-drop. That's an excellent start to the pack. Yep, Stadium Headliner gets a lot of damage in off that mobilizing early, and it doubles his removal spell later. Easy pick. Here's a great 2-drop, the the Shocking Sharpshooter, pinging our opponent every time that we play a creature or a token or anything like that. We've got a couple ways to get tokens out, like the War Effort here, and the Quarry Steel Cutter, so Sharpshooter's going to be really good in this deck. Forebear is also perfectly reasonable, but I think this deck will benefit more from Sharpshooter. Pinging away. And here we go. We've already gotten enough good cards out of this pack that our deck has graduated from being mid-derogatory to just genuinely mid. Right in the middle now. Take a Sun Pearl Kieran. And I did say Rebellious Strike's perfectly fine in this kind of deck. Let's see. We got 26 cards, 2 lands. It's probably where we want to be. 16 lander, 24 spells. So now every card I pick, I can cut something else. It's kind of like a Wild Ride for a Rebellious Strike. Or do I cut a 4-drop for a Stormshriek Feral? I think I'd rather cut like a Monastery Messenger for a Stormshriek Feral here. And we can cut the Wild Ride and go 17 lands. We got 3 5-mana dragons at the top of our curve now. Another War Effort, let's go. I'm really sad other people are on the Underdogs game plan. Because double War Effort with multiple Underdogs can be really nice. But we're already a pretty decent War Effort deck here, so I'm going to grab another copy of that. We'll go ahead and cut Sunshield. Very bad pack for us. Just early black spells again. Showing off how good the black-white at the core version of this deck would have been. Just hate on the other Boros drafters. Nobody gets a Yeti. Wow. Pick 7 Shocking Sharpshooter. I cannot emphasize enough how good of a pickup that is after how mediocre the last couple picks have been here. That is really, really good. We go from a pack where the best on-color card is Summit Intimidator to a pack with a Sharpshooter still here, pick 7. Really, really happy with that. It's an okay Skyrider deck. It does synergize well with double War Effort. All of those tokens that come out will be flying, even when we're not attacking with Skyrider. It's certainly filler, but so is everything on-color in this pack. And the synergy there is fun. I don't think I'll be playing a Twin Bolt. I have Snare, Rebuke, Snare, Rebuke, Dragonfire, Detainment. I don't have double Dragonfire. But I'm also not going to be playing the Technique, so just take a Twin Bolt and shove it in the side. Another Rescue Leopard. I don't think we're that incredibly good at flurrying, so I think I'll play 2 Leopard, 2 Practitioner over triple Practitioner here. Seize Opportunity. Probably not playing any of this. I'll take the uncommon for Vault Progress. Oh my god, what a pickup. Underfoot Underdogs, genuinely great here with double War Effort and Frontline Rush. Alright, so this would be our 17 land version of the deck. We have 2 Stormshriek Feral and a Sonic Shrieker at 5 mana, a Narset's Rebuke at 5 mana, Mardu Monument. Oh, this is actually the 16 land version of the deck. So I could cut a card and play 17 lands, or I can cut a land and go 16 lands and a Mardu Monument. I feel like our weakest cards in the deck are weak enough that just like a 17 land will be better, even if we don't need the land super, super badly. And I have double Feral to discard and draw 2, and double Leopard to discard and draw, so for flooding out, we have some ways to ditch that extra flood to try to draw into more spells. So I think we're perfectly fine to play a 17 land deck here. Just got like 1 Practitioner, because we're pretty clumped at 3. Looks great to me. Our 4 drops are just playing War Effort or removal. All right, yeah. Certainly has some filler here, but you do expect that when you are competing for Mardu. Kind of the self-balancing nature of draft, when a certain color or a certain archetype is way stronger than the rest, you can balance it out by having, 3 or 4 players in the draft pod all trying to play that same deck, and then narrowing it down, averaging it out to about the same power level as anybody else's deck in the draft pod. This deck is now as powerful as like a base Sultai or a base Abzan deck that is not 5 color. It could have some issues against a 5 color deck that came out of our draft pod, because I think that Boros was contested enough that some of the good 5 color stuff, maybe like some Dragonstorm Globes, some other fixing and ramp, was going pretty late. So pretty powerful pod for the 5 color, pretty weak one for Boros because how contested it is, but we still opened some really good stuff and got pretty lucky with some late wheels like a pick 7 Sharpshooter. We've got a super playable deck here, and I don't mind that at all. So pretty excited to see how this one does. Without further ado, let's hop into the gameplay and see how far it can take us. Here we are on the play for game number 1. A little sad we don't have the white source to lead with this Mardu Devotee, because then we would have just the curve out here. But I think I still keep this. Go for the Feral here on 2. Dig. Well, still no white source, but a ton of spells to cast now. Underdogs into War Effort could be fun. We are playing against Abzan at the least, black, green, and white. Rescue Leopard plays really badly against the Devotee, just 1-for-1 trades, and then that Devotee comes back later, gets value. Our opponent might actually be pure Abzan here. Don't mind trading half an underdogs into a Devotee. That'll slow them down a good chunk. It's 3 mana to bring it back from grave to hand, and it's currently only turn 4, so that at this point takes like their entire turn to do so. Yep, they're the full-on Abzan +1/+1 counter deck. They got the kind of Wombo combo successor into Hereafter, and we just keep drawing white spells. This is not looking good. Might have to hold on to this mountain. No, I probably still shouldn't, right? Because we just discard a white spell to draw a card. Don't want to skip playing any land drops. That way we could go double 3-drop on a future turn. Say I draw a 3-mana red spell, I could cast that, attack, discard a white spell, then cast another 3-drop, one of the white spells, main phase 2. Trade Route Envoy, great with the +1/+1 counters. Just 4 mana, 4/3 draw a card. It's like the Salt Road Pack Beast, but slightly less consistent and slightly more expensive. I'm in such a bad position mana-wise, I think I need to keep this Leopard around at all costs, which means chumping or just taking 8. Just take the 8. For now, I can just trump next turn. Oh boy. That is a white source, I guess. They're at 17 here. Devotee holding up the ability to frontline rush. If I don't frontline rush, I cast Practitioner or Skyrider. Probably Skyrider with the war effort on board. And potential frontline rush tokens if I don't have to cast it as a trick here. Do I go Leopard alone? I feel like it's probably best to not cast a trick right now. That way next turn I've got the widest board state I can and I try to frontline rush in a lethal. It's the best plan. They go to 12. Yeah, frontline rush could find a kill if they have like no interaction here. Is a possibility. Do we play this land out? The leopard to ditch it and find something else, but we'll also have whatever we drew that turn. We probably only need 2 spells to get the kill. Right, if I'm playing 2 lands, I'll have access to 3 cards total next turn. Rush, this, and whatever I draw. So the only way I'm playing 2 lands next turn is if I'm playing 2 lands and 1 spell. So the only reason it would be relevant to play a land now would be if I'm playing a 7-mana spell next turn, which my deck doesn't have. I guess there is the possibility of drawing my 2-mana discard 1, draw 2. That's the argument for playing the land here. Because then I can cast that for 2 and still have 1, 2, 3, 4 up, as well as the ability to play any land I draw into. So then I'd still have access to 5 mana elsewhere. However, if I did draw that and I did play the plains now, that would mean discarding Frontline Rush, which I do not think is the play. Alright, I mean, there's 2 ways this game is going to go. We're going to die to a combat trick right now, or our opponent is going to die to a combat trick next turn. We are not going to have lethal on our opponent if we sack too much of this board, so I think the only option is just like chump host and hope they don't have a big enough trick. Because if I chump any more than that, we're really unlikely to be cracking back for lethal, and if we're not cracking back for lethal immediately, we are just dying. Very soon. Alright, show me the trick. Go to 2. Exhale the leopard. Sorcery speed. If they saved that for instant speed, our chances of victory would be straight 0. Because then they just use it on whatever we try to frontline rush up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, they got us then. We did not get there. They could have the double removal here, and then we really didn't get there. Yeah. Alright. Does not stop 5 damage removal. Rough start for sure. Just big mana issues that game. We had the discard draw 2, and we've got a lot more white sources than black sources in the deck, so kept a bit of a risky one there, hoping to get there off of the discard 1, draw 2, as well as the leopard coming up for more discard and draw, but we just had a lot of cards stuck in our hand for far too long for an aggressive strategy, so our opponent got to play plenty of stuff without any real pressure from us, and that's going to happen. A little bit of a mana loss there. That is 0-1 heading into game 2. I swear to all of the gods I only have 1 swamp in this deck, and it's only in there because we have a Mardu Monument. Keep this. No creatures in the opening hand, but there are 16 in the deck, so we are likely to draw one before the war effort. But we were likely to draw plains last game earlier than we did, so you never know. Mardu Devotee from our opponent, who is on at least 4 colors. They're on like 5 color good stuff. Probably playing a bunch of different devotees. That was a good creature to draw here. as it will allow me to bolt their mana fixer and play a Kieran at the same time. Get my creature on the board before the war effort. I don't feel the need to kill this 1/3. So we'll just get the mana investment of the war effort out of the way. It's not doing a ton here, it's just 1 more damage right now. But now we won't have to cast that later. We get to keep all removal for better cards, like Marshal the Lost. A much scarier creature. Probably go for the Rebuke on that and save the Detainment for any non-land permanents. This can get rid of non-creatures as well. Okay. And I guess I'm not getting flurry value off of this. I'm not getting mana or value out of the extra mana this gives me, but that's fine. I'd rather not spend that mana than detain a 1/3. There's Dragon's Prey on Kieran. If we don't draw more creatures, we could die to the single 1/3. So I guess eventually we'll have to shoot it. Alright, 1 creature drawn so far. Looking for more. Breaching Dragonstorm. And Encroaching Dragonstorm. Or no, Corroding Dragonstorm. So every time they play a dragon, they pick this up and they get to Cascade again, and they pick this up and they get to drain life again. I mean, guess it's a creature. I guess I get rid of Breaching Dragon. I mean, that one is just so bad if it keeps getting cast. Because we're never breaking through the board if they just keep casting a second spell every single turn. Well, that's pretty much game. Big Hasty Mardu rare. Doubles up their creatures. Attacking. I thought. Okay, it can, but they chose not to. Sure. This actually ended up slightly closer than I thought it would. Because this is 6 damage now, if I haste out the leopard. Or I can Dragonfire Face, and that's also pretty much 6 damage, right? This gets a prowess. It's 3 damage there, and there's a new token. Guess it's 5 damage. But there's no way to survive the crackback, is there? 5 life. I guess Chump Siegebreaker. Can't kill any of these. So we're dead to removal. If I attack with anybody here. Still think it's the best bet. I forgot about the token. We actually had 10 damage here. Still not lethal. Because we couldn't have played the Dragonfire and attacked with all that. The only way to play the Dragonfire was tapping down one of these. That's dead. The whole board gets +1/+0, that includes the mobilized tokens. It all gets haste as well with Reigning Victor. Okay, we were monumentally dead. They gave the whole board trample here, so no matter how defensively we play it, we just die to that. Alright. Kind of seeing the 2 worst ways this deck can draw, honestly. Get hosed off of mana and then just draw almost no creatures for the whole start of the game. These are 2 just really, really detrimental things for aggressive strategies. I guess we just need to be mulliganing more aggressively. It's kind of the one decision point we had in these games. But I don't think either of these are due to an inherent flaw in the deck. We have 9 white sources, 7 plains, outpost, and monuments, so that first game was an anomaly. And we have like 16 creatures, so the second game also an anomaly on the downside because we have Cutter and Rush also being creatures. So that's, yep, 16, 14 plus those two. Yeah, just kind of a rough go of it variance-wise. 0-2 heading into game 3. All right, the awkward draws will continue. We got Devotee here to get the white mana for Kieran, and even if Devotee dies, every other spell in the hand is red, including one way to discard a card and draw 2 and look for another white source. So this is pretty objectively just a snap keep, with that many ways to get around the mana stuff. If Devotee doesn't die, the mana's fine. If Devotee does die, we discard a card, draw 2. And if Devotee does die, we discard and still don't hit white. We still have 3 other red spells. Or 2 other in the opener. We drew into the third one. Okay, Team or Devotee from our opponents. We can go Headliner plus Kieran here for the flurry. Trade Devotee for Devotee. Or I can just play Leopard and pass. I like going Headliner plus Kieran for a lot of creatures on this board. I don't love the Devotee for Devotee trade, but I think we still offer it because if they choose not to block, we're incredibly happy. Okay. They do not block, so we're happy to take the damage. Yeah, I think we make that attack because it's like if our opponent wants to take that trade, it is a fine trade. And if they don't want to take that trade, the extra 3 points of damage is pretty pivotal in aggressive strategies. Every little bit counts. Hold up my mana for Headliner and just send everybody in here. Feels like the play. I think our opponent's best block is they block Headliner and force me to sack it here. I guess they could block Devotee and force me to sack it. If they have like a combat trick here, that could be really bad. But I have like a post-combat Dragonfire as well. Humbling Elder. Okay, that's gross. That allows them to try to kill 2 of our creatures here. So if they have 2 tricks, if they have both Humbling Elder and a way to save Team or Devotee from this damage, then they're pretty favored. But just the 1 trick we're fine against. Okay, they are going to humble the Devotee, in which case I need to try to kill their Devotee. Now, I think, before they declare blocks. No, because I guess if the 3/3 declares blocks on the 0/2, that's the same amount of damage either way. Yeah, no, to just resolve that, actually. I can try to kill the Devotee post blocks regardless. Let's see a second trick. There is no second trick. Cool. So that actually ended weirdly favorable for me because that was like the exact same outcome as if they didn't even cast the Elder, honestly. If they just blocked our 2/2 with their 3/3, I would still have to just sack Headliner to save it before the Headliner did any damage. So the Headliner was already dealing 0. The Devotee was already dealing 0. So we just... The Humbling Elder basically didn't affect that combat at all. A second 3/3. But I want to attack you on the ground. Annoying. Well, we can attack if we worry. So let's go Sharpshooter Feral, discarding Leopard. Can I counter a discard draw two? It's possible. We'd be quite happy if they discard Feral. Yeah, now Sharpshooter resolves, which is much better. I don't know if I'd say much better. We are in a position where a draw two would be nice, but Sharpshooter is very good on the board at pretty much any point. Effortless Master 4/3 Vigilance Menace. Find the Stormplane Detainment for that, but it's only going to get one extra point of damage in, so I'd rather play Leopard this turn. We are halfway there. Our opponent's at 10. We have the Sharpshooter pings on the board. We have the Flying Sun Pearl Kieran. We have the Stormplane Attainment to clear out any flying or reach blockers, as well as the Channel Dragonfire for an additional 2 to their face in the end game. We're in a pretty fine position, but this is a set with a lot of really powerful, big, splashy late game rares. All of those big 3-color spells and stuff can have huge impact in the late game. So we are favored against average cards, but this set has a lot of cards that are well above average, such as Dragonback Assaults. Luckily, they do play that the turn where they don't have a landfall trigger to get the dragon, but that's still going to be tremendously difficult for us to beat. They just wiped our entire board. That was everything we had left. Massive 3-for-1 there. Board wipe. I guess a 4-for-2. They got rid of 3 of my cards in my detainment at the cost of their 1 assault and their 1 creature. Playing this land here so that I can cast Channel Dragonfire next turn, tapping 5 and a 1/1. Or sorry, 6 and a 1/1 if I draw the land. So if I top deck a land, I can cast a Dragonfire. Down to 12. Disgusting. The bounce creature against tokens. That'll do it. Technically not dead, but no draws from here are going to change the outcome of this game. That is a quick little 0-3. Been a while since we had one. Gotta get one at some point. Just showing some of the variance involved in Magic there. We had mana issues to lose game 1. Couldn't draw any of our 16 creatures for game number 2, or couldn't draw enough of them. And then game 3, just get mythic bombed out of it. That is Magic for you. It happens to everybody. It has been a while since we got an 03, so we were a bit overdue for it, and we're just going to have a very polarizing return trip to Tarkir Dragonstorm. Again, there are certainly a good chunk of flaws to this deck, but I don't really think it was much worse than our Boros deck that went 7-0 yesterday. Honestly, it's definitely not better than that deck. It is a little bit weaker than it, but overall, like, here's our creature curve, here's all our removal, here's the fixing, along with an outpost of Bloodfell Caves, the one swamp to go with the Mardu Monument. Yeah, I mean, the mana base in our 7-0 deck was a little bit better because it was pure Boros except for the Jeskai monuments, which did grab their own blue mana, so they fixed for themselves. So the mana base for yesterday's deck was incredibly consistent, right? And the curve was a little bit better as well. It had even more 2-drops than this. But outside of that, I think this deck has just as much removal, honestly. It's got more individually powerful spells like Headliner, Steel Cutter, Sonic Shrieker. It does also have a tiny bit more filler, like Double Leopard and Practitioner. But our 7-0 deck also had a little bit of filler, like it had its own Ferals, and I think it had a Leopard. It had some of this stuff as well, so I think this was mostly just variance here. This deck is not that much worse than yesterday's 7-0, but yesterday's deck had some pretty good luck. We were on a great lucky streak there, and today it's kind of the opposite, just a bit of an unlucky streak. It does happen to everybody. Yeah, I think that about sums it up. We went over this deck has some flaws. Mana base is a little less consistent. The mana curve is a little less consistent. There is a bit of filler here. So I don't expect this deck to 7-0, but certainly don't expect it to 0-3, and it is certainly not the polar opposite of our last deck in terms of power level. They're pretty close decks overall, but Magic the Gathering is a game of both skill and luck. There is some variance that is going to have pretty equal decks get very opposite results on occasion, and today we really got to show that off. But that's gonna do it. That is gonna end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell YouTube algorithm to send us more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel, the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.